The Romans solved central heating 2,000 years ago. Then we forgot how. Engineers recently rebuilt one from scratch, and what they discovered changes everything we assumed about ancient technology. In 1974, archaeologists in Bath, England made a discovery that should have been impossible. Beneath the famous Roman bathhouse, they found heating ducts that had remained structurally perfect for nearly 2,000 years. But here's what baffled them. The system had no moving parts. No pumps. No fans. Nothing mechanical whatsoever. Yet according to ancient records, these baths maintained temperatures of 110 degrees Fahrenheit, year-round, even during brutal British winters. The engineering seemed to violate basic physics. Hot air rises, everyone knows that. So how did Romans force heated air to travel sideways through walls, around corners, and up through floors, all without any mechanical assistance? The answer would take another 40 years to fully understand. And when researchers finally cracked it, they realized we had been catastrophically underestimating Roman engineers for centuries. To understand what the Romans achieved, we need to see what they were working with. The Hypocaust, from the Greek words meaning fire underneath, wasn't just a clever heating trick. It was a complete thermal management system that integrated architecture, physics, and materials science in ways we're only now appreciating. The basic concept sounds simple. You build a raised floor supported by pillars, light a fire in a furnace room called a prefurnium, and let hot air flow beneath the floor and up through hollow spaces in the walls. Simple, right? Except it's not. Modern engineers who've tried to replicate this system discovered that if you don't get the proportions exactly right, the whole thing fails catastrophically. The pillars have to be precisely the right height. The floor thickness matters down to the centimeter. The wall cavities need specific dimensions. Get any of these wrong, and instead of heating, you get smoke, cold spots, or worse, fires in your walls. If you're learning something new here, that like button genuinely helps this channel grow. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. When researchers examined hypocaust systems across the Roman Empire, they found something that shouldn't exist. Standardization. Bath complexes in Britain, villas in Germany, public buildings in North Africa, all used nearly identical proportions. Pillars consistently measured between 50 and 70 centimeters tall. Floor tiles maintained specific thicknesses. Wall cavities followed the same patterns. Now imagine trying to coordinate construction standards across an empire stretching from Scotland to Syria, 2,000 years before the internet, before standardized measurement systems, before engineering schools. How did Romans achieve this level of consistency? The answer reveals something profound about ancient knowledge transfer. It wasn't luck. It wasn't independent invention. Someone figured out the optimal mathematics and then systematically spread that knowledge across 3 continents. Think about that for a second. The Romans essentially created the ancient equivalent of building codes for thermal engineering, and then enforced them empire-wide. The man likely responsible for this standardization was named Vitruvius. Around 25 BCE, this Roman architect compiled everything the empire knew about construction into a work called De Architectura. 10 books covering everything from temple design to water engineering to, crucially, heating systems. Vitruvius didn't just describe how to build a hypocaust. He explained why specific proportions worked. He detailed the physics of heat transfer using language that translates remarkably well into modern thermodynamics. He even addressed common failure modes and how to prevent them. But here's what makes this truly remarkable. Vitruvius wrote that he was documenting knowledge that already existed, passed down through generations of Roman and Greek engineers. Which means the mathematics behind the hypocaust predates his writing by potentially centuries. Someone, somewhere, had figured out optimal heat transfer ratios through pure experimentation and observation, long before anyone had a theoretical framework to explain why it worked. The Romans weren't just copying ancient designs. They were building on scientific discoveries we still don't fully credit them with making. But everything I've told you so far, that's just the foundation. Because in 2015, a team at the University of Exeter attempted something nobody had tried in 15 centuries. They built a fully functional Roman hypocaust from scratch, using only materials and methods available to ancient engineers. And what happened next forced them to completely rewrite their assumptions. The system didn't just work. It worked better than their computer models predicted. Way better. Within 3 hours of lighting the Prefernium, the floor above reached 104 degrees Fahrenheit. The walls stayed warm to the touch for over 12 hours after the fire was extinguished. Most shocking of all, the fuel consumption was roughly 40% lower than modern radiator systems heating the same volume. Subscribe now if you want to understand how this is possible. The Romans hadn't just invented underfloor heating. They had optimized it to a degree that modern engineers are still trying to match. The question became, what did the ancients know that we had forgotten? The answer lay in something called thermal mass optimization, and the Romans understood it intuitively. See, modern heating works by constantly pumping hot air or water through a system. Turn off the heat, and temperatures drop quickly. But the Roman hypocaust worked differently. The thick masonry floors and walls absorbed heat slowly, then released it slowly. This created what engineers call thermal flywheel effect, where the structure itself becomes a heat battery. The pillar heights weren't arbitrary. They created the optimal air volume for heat transfer without wasting energy heating empty space. The floor thickness wasn't random. It was calculated to absorb maximum heat while remaining structurally sound. The wall cavities weren't simple chimneys. They were designed to create specific convection currents that pulled hot air through the entire system without any mechanical assistance. Every single element worked together in a system so sophisticated that when the Exeter team analyzed the physics, they found the Romans had essentially solved multivariate optimization problems we now use computers for. Drop your prediction in the comments. Do you think the Romans discovered this through pure trial and error, or did they have mathematical frameworks we haven't found yet? The sophistication extended even further. Roman engineers developed different hypocaust configurations for different needs. Public baths had multiple temperature zones, the tepidarium, caldarium, and frigidarium, all maintained at precisely different temperatures using the same fire source. They achieved this by varying the distance from the Prefernium, the floor thickness in each zone, and the size of wall cavity openings. It was essentially ancient climate zoning. In military installations along Hadrian's Wall, they adapted the system for rapid heating in emergency situations. In wealthy villas, they integrated hypocausts with gardens, heating greenhouse-like structures to grow Mediterranean plants in northern climates. The technology wasn't static either. Archaeological evidence shows continuous refinement over 4 centuries, with later examples showing more efficient designs than earlier ones. The Romans weren't just using heating technology. They were actively improving it through systematic experimentation. And then, in the 5th century, it all stopped. The Western Roman Empire collapsed, and within 2 generations, the knowledge of how to build these systems had vanished from Europe entirely. For 1500 years, Europeans heated their homes with open fires, smoky and inefficient, while the infrastructure for superior heating lay buried beneath their feet. Medieval builders sometimes discovered hypocaust ruins and had no idea what they were looking at. Some thought they were crypts or storage chambers. Others believed they were built by giants or magic. The knowledge gap is staggering when you consider it. A Roman soldier stationed in Britain in the 2nd century had access to better heating technology than a wealthy English merchant in the 15th century. The science existed. The materials existed. The written instructions existed in Vitruvius's work, which survived in monastic libraries. But the practical skill of actually building these systems had been lost to time. It wasn't until the late 19th century that underfloor heating was reinvented, and engineers initially had no idea they were recreating Roman technology. The first modern radiant floor heating patents made no mention of ancient precedents. We literally forgot that we had forgotten. Today, the Roman hypocaust is experiencing something of a renaissance. Architects designing energy-efficient buildings are studying ancient thermal mass principles. The concept of passive heating, using building materials themselves to store and release heat, directly echoes Roman engineering philosophy. Some modern geothermal heating systems incorporate design elements that Vitruvius would recognize. In South Korea, the traditional ondol heating system, which survived continuously since ancient times,